The slow procession moved through the streets of Tel Aviv in silence. Only the low hum of engines and the flashing blue lights of police escorts broke the stillness. Inside one of the vehicles lay the body of an Israeli hostage, one of those taken into Gaza during the long months of war, now returning home in death. The convoy wound its way toward the Abu Kabir Forensic Center, Israel's main identification facility. Cameras caught the vehicles as they passed, heavy curtains drawn, guarded closely by soldiers and police. For many Israelis, this moment symbolized both closure and renewed pain. Closure that one of their citizens had finally been brought back, and pain that it had taken so long under such circumstances. Officials confirmed that the remains were handed over as part of a US-brokered ceasefire deal between Israel and Hamas. That agreement, fragile and contested, allowed for a limited exchange of hostages and prisoners, as well as humanitarian access into Gaza. For families of the remaining captives, tonight's scene in Tel Aviv offered a glimpse of what might still be possible and what remains at stake. Outside the forensic center, security forces maintained a strict perimeter. The gates opened briefly, allowing the convoy to enter, and then closed again with deliberate finality. Behind those gates, forensic specialists began the process of confirming the hostage's identity, work that combines science with sensitivity, given the circumstances of captivity and conflict. Government officials have not released the name of the deceased pending confirmation and notification of the family. But media outlets, citing Israeli sources, suggest the body may belong to one of several hostages reported to have died in Gaza in recent weeks. The military has been under growing public pressure to account for all missing persons, especially as new phases of the ceasefire raise hopes for further recoveries. This repatriation is part of a broader diplomatic choreography, one that has taken months of quiet talks, mediated by Washington, Cairo, and Doha. US officials say the current ceasefire, though limited, represents the most concrete progress since the war began. It includes commitments by Hamas to provide information about other hostages and by Israel to facilitate humanitarian aid through the Kerem Shalom crossing. Yet the deal remains fragile. Israeli leaders have made clear that military operations could resume if Hamas fails to comply or if rockets are launched again from Gaza. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has repeatedly said that Israel will not tolerate what he calls partial peace while its citizens remain in captivity. For families of the hostages, the sight of a flag-draped vehicle pulling into a forensic compound is a stark reminder of how thin the line is between hope and heartbreak. Many have kept nightly vigils in Tel Aviv's Hostages Square, clutching photos and candles, demanding that the government bring every captive home, alive if possible, and if not, for burial. In recent days, several humanitarian groups have stepped up calls for international monitoring of the ceasefire terms. They argue that without neutral oversight, violations could quickly spiral into renewed fighting. The United Nations has dispatched a small liaison team to coordinate between the parties and ensure safe passage for aid convoys into Gaza. Inside Gaza, the ceasefire has offered a temporary respite from months of bombardment. Aid trucks have entered through Rafah and Kerem Shalom, carrying food, fuel and medical supplies. But large parts of the enclave remain in ruins and thousands of families are still displaced. The return of hostages or their bodies has become both a humanitarian and a political test for the warring sides. For the Israeli public, tonight's transfer marks another chapter in a painful national narrative, one defined by the twin imperatives of security and survival. Outside the forensic center, a handful of protesters stood silently, holding Israeli flags and signs reading, "Bring them all back." Others left flowers at the gate, a spontaneous gesture of grief and solidarity. In Washington, the State Department confirmed US involvement in facilitating the exchange. A spokesperson said the agreement reflects the tireless efforts of diplomats working to save lives and ease suffering on both sides. President Trump has not yet commented publicly, but senior officials say he was personally briefed on the handover. The repatriation also carries symbolic weight for the ceasefire process itself. Each successful transfer, however small, helps build a measure of trust between adversaries who share little of it. Analysts note that the movement of remains, like that of hostages, often serves as a prelude to broader negotiations, including discussions about reconstruction and longer-term security arrangements. Still, many Israelis remain skeptical. Public opinion polls show declining faith in Hamas's willingness to abide by the ceasefire and persistent anger over the government's handling of the hostage crisis. Some critics accuse the administration of moving too slowly. Others fear that returning to the negotiating table rewards terrorism. In Gaza, meanwhile, Hamas officials have sought to portray the exchange as proof of their leverage. A statement from the group's political bureau said the transfer demonstrates that Israel only responds under pressure. The message underscores the continuing psychological dimension of the conflict, where every gesture, humanitarian or otherwise, is interpreted through the lens of power. Forensic experts at Abu Kabir are expected to complete identification procedures within 24 hours. Once confirmed, the body will be released to the family for burial according to Jewish tradition. In past cases, such funerals have drawn large crowds, uniting mourners from across political divides in moments of shared sorrow. The center itself, located in southern Tel Aviv, has been at the heart of Israel's efforts to identify victims of war and terror for decades. Technicians there have handled some of the country's most sensitive cases, from bombings to battlefield recoveries, balancing clinical precision with emotional gravity. Tonight, as the convoy's lights disappear beyond the gates, reporters stand by under a cool Mediterranean breeze. There are no official statements yet, only the steady rhythm of flashing lights and the sound of footsteps on asphalt. For those watching, it is a scene heavy with implication, a reminder that the ceasefire's success will be measured not in words, but in the return of lives and, tragically, of bodies. In Jerusalem, government ministers are meeting to review the next phase of negotiations. Officials say Israel is demanding a full accounting of all hostages still held in Gaza, including information on those presumed dead. Defense Minister Yoav Gallant told colleagues earlier this week that every name, every person must be verified and brought home. Human rights groups have welcomed the partial truce, but warn that the humanitarian situation in Gaza remains dire. The International Committee of the Red Cross, which helped coordinate the transfer, said in a statement that the return of remains to families is a humanitarian necessity, not a political act. The organization called on all sides to continue cooperating to ensure the dignity of the dead and the safety of the living. Diplomatically, the ceasefire has opened rare lines of communication. Egyptian and Qatari mediators are already discussing possible extensions, though neither side has confirmed how long the current calm will hold. US officials have described the next 72 hours as critical, emphasizing that sustained quiet on the ground could pave the way for broader prisoner exchanges. For now, the story returns to the quiet streets outside the Forensic Center. The crowd has thinned, the media trucks are packing up, and Tel Aviv's traffic resumes its usual rhythm. But the image of that convoy, the slow, deliberate arrival of a life lost in captivity, will linger. It captures the essence of this moment, fragile progress built on deep wounds, and a reminder that even in ceasefire, the cost of conflict endures. In homes across Israel, televisions replay the footage, the black vehicles, the flashing lights, the brief glimpse of uniformed officers standing guard. For the family awaiting confirmation, the night stretches long. For the nation, it is another step in the long road from war toward whatever peace might follow. As dawn approaches, the forensic work continues behind closed doors. Somewhere within the compound, specialists match dental records, DNA samples, and photographs, each piece of evidence contributing to a name, a story, a life. Soon, perhaps by morning, the official announcement will come, and another family will have both an ending and a beginning, an ending to uncertainty and a beginning to mourning. Beyond the immediate tragedy lies the larger question: can this exchange signal a turning point, or will it be remembered as just another brief pause in an endless cycle of violence and retribution? For now, the answer remains uncertain, but as the gates of Abu Kabir close once more, one thing is clear: the return of a single body has once again reminded Israelis and Palestinians alike of the profound human cost of their conflict.